code of which is BPAE 141, and the name of the paper is Right to Information. So I welcome you all again to my learning session. So let us begin with this paper, that is Right to Information, and the code of which is BPAE 141. So let us begin. So in the first block, which we are going to cover today, it is related to an introduction to right to information. So as part of that, we're going to do the unit 1 of this paper, in which we'll be covering the evolution, the concept, the achievements and limitations related to right to information. In the second block of this paper, which we'll be doing in the upcoming classes, it is regarding the Right to Information Act, which was passed in 2005. So as part of that, we'll do the second unit, which is related to an overview of the RTI Act of 2005. Afterwards, we'll do the third unit of this paper, which is relating to the RTI rules, the Right to Information rules. The fourth unit of this second block is concerned with the Central Information Commission. And the fifth unit is relating to the State Information Commission. So here is how the syllabus of this paper is panned out. So in the third block of this paper, which we'll be doing in the next classes, that is relating to the implementation of the RTI Act of 2005 and the issues and challenges that were encountered in implementing this RTI Act of 2005. As part of that, we'll be doing Unit 6, Unit 7, Unit 8 and Unit 9. So Unit 6 will be relating to administrative efficiency, transparency and accountability through the RTI Act of 2005, and what were the issues and challenges that were faced in implementing this act. That is what the sixth unit of this paper of the third block is related to. Moving on, in the seventh unit, we'll be studying about the role of the Central Information Commission as well as the State Information Commissions as well, and the other public authorities. So what were the expectations from them and what were the constraints that they faced in implementing this RTI Act of 2005. Afterwards, we'll be studying about the constraints in the implementation of the RTI Act of 2005 at the district level. So that we'll study. Moving on, we'll also be studying about the role of media and the role of the civil society organizations as well. After that, we have the fourth block of this paper, which is relating to good governance through RTI. So what were the initiatives that were taken to ensure good governance through RTI? And what were the impact of those initiatives that were taken to ensure good governance through RTI? So as part of that, we'll be doing the Unit 11, which is relating to the significance of RTI for governance. That we'll be studying. After that, we'll also be studying some of the judgments of the Supreme Court and the Honorable High Courts in facilitating the enforcement of RTI. So that we'll be doing in the 12th unit as part of the fourth block of this paper. Afterwards, in the 13th unit, we'll be doing the good practices and the successes that have been achieved through this RTI Act and the efforts that have been put in to realize the transparency and accountability through RTI Act. In the 14th unit of this paper, we'll be studying about the social audit. And finally, in the 15th unit, we'll be studying about bridging the gap between the rights and their enforceability. That would be the final unit that we'll be doing as part of our fourth block. But today, begin with the first block of this paper, which is relating to an introduction of the right to information or RTI. So let us begin with the first unit of this first block, which is relating to the concept of RTI, the evolution of this concept, the achievements that this concept has made, and also the limitations that it has encountered. So, as we all know, that right to information, it has contributed in strengthening the participatory democracy in our country, not only in our country but across the world. And also, it has played a significant role in promoting transparency and accountability also at all levels of government. So, this is the present era is called the information age. The growth of information technology has made access to information much easier to the general population. So that is why this age is called the information age. And in this information age, the RTI Act of 2005, or the Right to Information Act of 2005, it has marked a paradigm shift in Indian democracy, and it has provided unrestrained access to information to the citizens of India. So RTI can be considered to be a paradigm shift, watershed moment in the history of Indian democracy. And especially this RTI Act of 2005, that has ensured unrestrained access to information to the citizens. And what we observe is that the institutionalization of this RTI regime, it has to be recognized as a far-reaching step towards deepening democracy in India. So it has deepened the roots of democracy in our country, the institutionalization of RTI. And this landmark legislation, that is the RTI Act of 2005, it has also enabled the common citizens to participate enthusiastically in the governance process. So it has increased the citizens' participation in the process of governance. And so by doing this, they are exercising their right to seek information from the government and its agencies. So it has played a huge role in enabling the citizens to exercise their right, their fundamental right to seek information from the government and its agencies. And also it has increased people's participation in the governance process. And thereby, by doing all these things, it has deepened the roots of democracy in our country. And besides empowering the citizens of the country, the RTI Act of 2005, it has also fixed the responsibility of the government officials as well for timely delivery of information to the information seekers, that is the common citizens. So in this role, in this way, we have seen that the role of the information commissions, the Central Information Commission and the State Information Commission. Now, if we take the example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, what we see during the COVID-19 pandemic or during any other pandemic, it becomes very necessary to ensure that citizens can obtain necessary information on healthcare facilities and also on the government's social security programs, as well as delivery of essential goods and services that are meant for the marginalized sections of the society. So these things become very important during any pandemic situation. So these measures in the long run, they contribute in curbing corruption. So the introduction of the RTI Act, it has contributed in curbing corruption and also in developing the citizens' trust in governmental actions for sustainable development. And in democratic societies like ours, information is considered power. And the democracy, it expects openness, and openness is a concomitant of free society. So we cannot have a free society without openness, and we cannot have democracy also without openness. So openness is possible only when the right to know can be exercised by the people. So without the right to know, openness is not possible in a democracy. So in a democracy, the people are sovereign. So what we see is that the people are sovereign and there is no one above the people, because it is the people only who elect the government. And the people, they have the right to know what their representatives are doing. So the having the right to know is a very important constituent, a very important part, a very important component of the sovereignty of people. So that is why in a democracy, the people or the voters, they have the right to know what their representatives are doing. Hence, information is indispensable for transparent and accountable functioning of a true democratic government. So, information is indispensable for transparent and accountable functioning of a true democratic government. Because information provides safeguards against abuses, mismanagement, and corrupt practices. And information is also beneficial to the government as well, because openness and transparency in the decision making process, they help in developing citizens' trust in the governmental actions. So information not only benefits the people, but it also benefits the government as well, and it helps in developing the citizens' trust in governmental actions, and it further enhances the decision making process. So freedom of expression, it contains many of the basic elements of free speech. And as we know that in our constitution, article 19, it guarantees free speech as a fundamental right. So our constitution has guaranteed the freedom of speech as a fundamental right in article 19. And as well as freedom of expression is also a fundamental right in our constitution. And freedom of expression itself contains many of the basic elements of free speech. And in its broader and expansive notion, freedom of expression, it also includes the freedom to speak, the freedom to write, print, and publish. So freedom of expression, it also includes the communication of ideas or opinions through gestures as well. And freedom of information, it is quite different from freedom of speech or the freedom of press or freedom of expression. So freedom of information and freedom of speech and expression, they are quite different. Freedom of information, it means the individual's ability to gain access to information in the possession of state authorities. So information which is in the possession of state authorities, that the individual should be able to gain access to. So if the individual has that ability, then we can say that yes, the individual has freedom of information. So it is the right of the individual to be informed about the activities of his state, about the past, present, and future activities of his state. It is the right of the individual. The concept of an open government, it directly flows from the right to know. So we are discussing right to information here, and right to information, it plays a very important role in ensuring the openness of government in a democracy. And the concept of an open government, it directly flows from the right to know, which is implicit in the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression, which I already mentioned that it is guaranteed under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A of the Constitution of India. And in a democratic form of government like ours, the disclosure of information with regard to the functioning of government, it must be the rule. And secrecy can only be an exception, which can be justified only where the strict requirement of public interest demands secrecy to be maintained. The courts, they can also satisfy protection of the secrecy only on the ground of the requirement of public interest, bearing in mind all the time that disclosure also serves an important aspect of public interest. So not only secrecy, but disclosure also serves an important aspect of public interest. And the freedom of speech and expression, it also includes the right to acquire information and disseminate that information. That is also included in the freedom of speech and expression. So it is necessary for self expression. Freedom of speech and expression is necessary. So it is necessary for self expression, which is an important means of free conscience as well as self fulfillment also. So freedom of speech and freedom of expression, it includes the right to acquire information and to disseminate that acquired information, which itself is necessary for self expression as well, and which is an important means of free conscience and self fulfillment. So, the freedom of speech and expression and the freedom to acquire information enables people to contribute to debates on social and moral issues. And it is the best way to find a truest model of enlightenment, since it is only through this freedom that the widest possible range of ideas can circulate. And it is the only vehicle of political discourse as well, which is very essential to democracy. So freedom of speech and expression includes the freedom of press as well. The freedom of press, it also includes the right to circulate and also to determine the volume of such circulation. So that's also a very important aspect of the freedom of or the right to information. The freedom of press, which includes the right to circulate and determine the volume of such circulation. And the right to information is indisputably a fundamental right as well. So the right to information is a necessary tool for social welfare also. And it has been pointed out that this right to information is a potent tool for countering many social evils also from society. So right to information is a very important tool for countering many of the social evils also from society, and also for protecting the fundamental rights of the people as well. And the RTI is also necessary for protecting civil liberties also. So as an example, by making it easier for civil society groups to monitor wrongdoings like encounter killings or abuse of preventive detention legislation. So RTI has helped the civil society to monitor and curb many of the wrongdoings also, and hence it is a very important tool for countering as well as eliminating and for challenging many of the social evils in the society, and also it is a very important tool for social welfare as well. Hence we can say that right to information is a fundamental right. So in India, a nationwide concerted campaign by the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, or the MKSS, and the National Campaign for People's Rights to Information, NCPRI, and the Press Council of India, as well as others, led to the demand for right to information. So this legislation, it saw light when the Parliament passed the Freedom of Information Act in 2002. So it was for the first time through this Freedom of Information Act of 2002 that this right to information was recognized by the legislature of India, but it could not become a statute as it was not notified by the government. Also, the Right to Information Act of 2005, which replaced the Freedom of Information Act of 2002, it was a significant development in the realm of constitutional and administrative law. And it also proved to be a means of social audit in India as well. So it is a very important legislation, this Right to Information Act of 2005. So it may also be stated that this RTI Act that we are talking about of 2005, it is merely a legislative implementation of the constitutional norm of the right to know that is available to all the citizens of our people, of all the citizens of our nation against the government, and which is a part of the democratic structure of our constitution. So the RTI Act of 2005, it is just a legislative implementation of this right to know that has been guaranteed to us by our constitution. So that is a fundamental right, and the RTI Act of 2005 is just a legislative implementation of that fundamental right that we already have from the constitution. So it is not the government which is according us this right, but this right to know is an implicit part of the democratic structure of our constitution. And this RTI Act is just a legislative implementation of that implicit right to know that is available to all the citizens of our country against the government. And it is also a very important means of social audit as well. Now, the government of India in 2005 enacted this very important and watershed legislation, that is the RTI Act of 2005, which is considered to be a paradigm shift, as I've already discussed. And it is considered also a very important law and the most important law in promoting good governance in India. And this RTI Act of 2005, it contains all the rules and procedures regarding the citizens' right to information from the government, also regarding the right to inspect government documents and also to seek certified photocopies of these government documents. The RTI Act of 2005, it also mandates timely response to the citizens' requests for government information. And this RTI, it is a part of the fundamental rights we have already discussed under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A of the Constitution. So Article 19, Clause 1, it has specified that every citizen has freedom of speech and expression. And any person who is a citizen of India or an NRI can file an RTI request. So this extends to the whole of India, including the state of Jammu and Kashmir after the revocation of Article 370. And this Article 19, Clause 1 of the Constitution of India, which is a part of the fundamental rights, it is recognized that the people's right to information, which has been proclaimed by numerous judicial pronouncements as a fundamental right, and is also enshrined in our constitution. So the enactment of this RTI Act of 2005, it was a historical step, and it substituted the culture of secrecy and control that existed in government agencies. So the culture of secrecy and control was substituted by that of transparency and participation. And the RTI Act not only covers the central and state governments, but also the grassroots democratic bodies as well are covered here. And all those institutions which receive government grants are also under the purview of the RTI Act of 2005. And the RTI Act of 2005, it has also empowered citizens with the information in order to ensure transparency, accountability, and good governance. And this Act of 2005, the RTI Act, it has also cast an obligation on every public authority to provide information to the public as well as to publish annually various particulars concerning the organization, including the categories of documents that are available with it. And this RTI Act of 2005, it has also defined information as any material in any form, including records, documents, memos, emails, opinions, advices, or press releases, circulars, reports, orders, logbooks, contracts, and various other materials that the government may possess. They all are now under the purview of the RTI Act of 2005. And this also includes information relating to any private body which can be accessed by a public authority under any other law for time being. And according to this RTI Act of 2005, the right to information, it means the information accessible under this act, which is held by any public authority. And these various rights are included under this RTI Act of 2005. Now, what are these rights? The first is pertaining to the inspection of work or documents or records. The second is pertaining to the taking of notes or extracts or certified copies of documents. The third is relating to the taking of certified samples of materials. And the fourth is relating to the obtaining of information in the form of discs, floppies, or tapes, or video cassettes, or any other electronic mode, or through printouts as well, from any electronic device or from a computer also. So these are the different rights that have been provided under this RTI Act of 2005. Now, access to information is often called the oxygen for a democratic society, and it is rightly as democracy is deepening its roots across the world, as there is a democratic upsurge taking place throughout the world. What we see is that the awareness about the right to information is gradually increasing in citizens. So that is why access to information has been termed as a oxygen for democratic society. And this RTI Act of 2005, it has also been used as a tool to hold elected representatives accountable for the manner in which they spend the public funds. To seek the accountability of elected representatives in how they have spent the public funds, this RTI Act of 2005 has become a very important tool. And in this way, more than the law, the RTI Act is a process, and it is a tool, it is a concept and a cultural approach to life. So let us now study about the evolution of this RTI. So highlighting the importance of right to information, in its very first session in 1946, the United Nations General Assembly, it adopted the Resolution 59 Clause 1. And in this resolution, the United Nations General Assembly, it stated that freedom of information is a fundamental human right, and it is also the touchstone of all the freedoms to which the United Nations is consecrated. So the right to information is recognized by the United Nations also. So from this we can gauge the importance of this right. And this phrase, the freedom of information, it owes its origins to the United States. And in the later part of the 20th century, the United States Supreme Court, it interpreted the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States to include a right to access of information. Until that time, the right to information had only been interpreted to indirectly guarantee the people's right to know through the right of freedom of speech and press. So now let us do a conceptual analysis of the concept of right to information. So etymologically, if we see the etymology of this term, the term information is derived from the Latin words formation and forma, which means giving shape to something, and also forming a pattern. So being a matter related to speech and expression, information is known as something which removes vagueness in ideas and also adds something new to our awareness. So the famous political thinker the famous thinker of Western political thought, John Stuart Mill, he developed this concept of information very brilliantly. So John Stuart Mill, he conceptualized information as follows. So he said that information is an activity, information is a life form, and also information is a relationship. So for John Stuart Mill, information is an activity, a life form, and also a relationship. Moving on, John Milton, in his book Areopagitica, he developed certain arguments which are valuable to understand the philosophical foundation of this right to information. So John Milton, according to him, the licensing order cannot possibly achieve its preferred end because truth is strong and will prevail without the help of the censor's coercive assistance. So John Milton was against the concept of censorship of information. And John Milton also said that truth is strong next to the Almighty. And truth, according to Milton's universe, is considered to prevail in due time. And the Areopagitica, it exalts the importance and dignity of learning. So John Milton has called truth as one of the richest product. There are other thinkers as well, such as E. Westermarck, who found all the important differences of moral opinions between savage people and civilized nations depend on knowledge or ignorance of facts. And among the 7 goods that are necessary for human beings, knowledge is one of them. And Francis Bacon also pointed out that knowledge is power, and this power comes from information. So these are the different thinkers who voiced their opinions on the right to information. And the theory of knowledge also that was propounded by René Descartes, that is also based on the method of doubt. And his method of doubt, it presupposes that data and information is to acquire knowledge for the clarification of doubt that one has. And unless we have access to information, we cannot acquire knowledge, and there can be no wisdom without knowledge. So from John Stuart Mill's writings, we can conclude that without information on resources to nourish the mind, no one can judge something as right or wrong. So without information, it is impossible for us to judge anything as right or wrong. In order to judge anything, we first need to have information regarding that thing. And John Stuart Mill, in his book on liberty, he says that a person should endeavor to know the ideas of his opponents with greater imagination and understanding than he devotes to knowing his own. Also, Thomas Emerson has also talked about the role of discussion as well. And Thomas Emerson was of the opinion that suppression of ideas, it promotes inflexibility and substitutes force for reason. So the powerful argument for openness is also found in the writings of James Madison as well. Now, James Madison was of the opinion that meaningful participation in a democratic processes, it requires informed participants. So this is what James Madison, the former president of United States of America, said, that meaningful participation in a democratic processes require informed participants. And informed participation is possible only if there is an access to information. So without access to information, informed participation on behalf of the citizens is not possible. And excessive secrecy, according to James Madison, excessive secrecy in the government, it reduces the chances of the citizens to be informed. And this creates hindrance for meaningful participation, and also it can create distrust as well in the minds of the citizens regarding the government, And this distrust can then make the citizens rebellious as well, because then the citizens would develop this perception that the government is suppressing their rights. Their right to know is being suppressed, and the citizens may also develop this suspicion that the government is suppressing their right to know because the government is indulging in some wrongdoings. So this kind of an unnecessary suspicion can also develop in the minds of the citizens, and this can make them rebellious also, which can threaten the very existence of the government itself. So excessive secrecy, it can prove to be counterproductive for any government, and it may lead to rebellions or revolutions, because it reduces the participatory role of the citizens in the process of governance. And so that is why the distrust and the gulf between the citizens and the government, that increases, which can prove to be counterproductive for the government, for the very survival of the government or the regime itself. So public opinion, it is indispensable to establish a just system of governance based on popular consent. And public opinion created by information is only the soul of democracy. There is a very good nexus also between public opinion and access to information. If there is no access to information, public opinion cannot be effective, because information is the tonic for the human mind. Information has been described as the tonic for the human mind, and also in the absence of information, the human mind cannot form an effective opinion. Now let us discuss some of the achievements of the RTI Act, of the Right to Information. So the aim of the RTI Act of 2005 was to ensure maximum disclosure with minimum exemptions. So ensuring maximum disclosures with minimum exemptions was the aim of this RTI Act of 2005. And this RTI Act of 2005, it has been very impactful due to its brief and crisp construction. And every citizen is empowered to get information as per this act. And all that one need to do is make a request in writing, as no fixed pro forma is required also. And also the fees is also minimal, and one has to specify the particulars of the information that one is seeking. And subsection 2 of section 6, it specifically says that an applicant making a request for information is not required to give any reason for requesting the information. So you do not need to give any reason why you are seeking the information. No, that is not required. So the applicant is not required to give any reason for requesting the information, or any other personal details also, except those that are necessary for contacting that person. And this act has brought many documents and details in the public domain that would have otherwise remained bundled in files. And this RTI Act of 2005, it has structured and strengthened many legislations also. And it has given birth to many RTI activists as well, who have unearthed many corruption in the government agencies as well. So they have been called the whistleblowers. And this RTI, or the right to information, it has also proven to be a very important means of social audit as well. And it has empowered to carry out social audit of the governmental organizations by obtaining information on the work that has been executed by these organizations, and also that prevailing on the ground to find out the gaps in provision of services. So this right to information, it also brings to light the acts of omissions and commissions including cases of inaction, harassment, extortion, corruption, or abuse of power and authority on part of the officials of various departments of the government, its local bodies, autonomous organizations, and other institutions that are owned or substantially financed by the government, which includes NGOs as well. So, all these bodies are under the purview of the right to information. Now let us see how the right to information has proven to be a very important tool of social transformation. So in any society, transformation can be brought about by an informed citizenry. And RTI is an instrument through which information regarding policies and programs of the government, as well as decisions taken on various issues of public importance lying in the possession of public authorities, can be unraveled. So RTI is not only a human right, but it is also an essential tool of democracy, because it is an instrument through which information regarding policies and programs of the government, as well as decisions taken by the government on various issues of public importance, can be unraveled, can be unearthed, and it has helped in creating an informed citizenry. Hence, we can say that RTI is not only a human right, but also a very essential tool of democracy as well. And a very important role that this RTI has played is to uncover the scams and anomalies of the government. So the Adarsh Society scam is one such scam which was unearthed by this RTI, right to information. So a 6-story building which was built for the widows of the Kargil War of 1999, for the widows of the martyrs of the Kargil War of 1999, that was turned into a 31-story building called the Adarsh Housing Society, which was located in Mumbai's posh residential area of Kolaba, and it soon became the abode of politicians, bureaucrats, as well as top military officers. And the RTI activists Simpreet Singh and Yogacharya Anand, they exposed this scam, and they revealed that the piece of land, it did not belong to the state government but to the Union Ministry of Defense. And this ultimately culminated in the resignation of the then Chief Minister of Maharashtra, that is Ashok Chavan. And also it played a very important role in the Delhi demolitions, in unearthing the purpose behind the Delhi demolitions that were carried out by the Municipal Corporation of Delhi. And this NGO, which was named Parivartan, which was working towards bringing transparency and accountability in governance, they demanded through RTI that the entire process of demolitions that were being carried out by the Municipal Corporation of Delhi, that should take place with complete transparency. And pointing to a seeming confusion about the definition of demolition, this Parivartan NGO, it noted that whereas some structures were being completely razed, others were being let off with minor damages. And in addition, the action that was being taken against misuse of residential premises for commercial purposes, it did not seem to be uniform. Whereas some structures have been demolished, others, including some big showrooms, were let off with just ceiling. And in the RTI, it was asked what guidelines govern such decisions. And absence of any such clear guidelines could be a fertile ground for further corruption. And the MCD needs to make its stand clear on all these issues, this NGO said. And the people, they have a right to know all these informations under the RTI Act. Now let us see some of the statutory limitations that this Right to Information Act faces in our country. Now, These limitations are relating to the Article 19, Clause 2 of the Constitution of India. RTI has been accepted as a fundamental right of the citizens of India under Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A. We have already discussed that. And this covers the right to free speech, the right to publish, and right to information also. A citizen does not have to give reasons for exercising any of these rights. So the fundamental right can be limited only by reasonable restrictions under a law made for the purposes that are mentioned in Article 19, Clause 2 of the Constitution. The restrictions are for the protection of sovereignty and integrity of the nation, as well as relating to the protection of friendly relations with foreign countries, public order, decency, and morality. So the burden is on the authority to justify the restriction. The public order is not the same thing as public safety, and hence no restriction can be placed on the right to freedom of speech and expression on the ground that public safety is endangered. Now there is a non-disclosure clause as well in the RTI Act, which is Section 8 of the RTI Act of 2005. And this RTI Act of 2005 itself provides for certain exemptions as well, which impose certain limitations on the people's right to receive information. Non-disclosure clause of this RTI Act, which is Section 8, it discharges public authorities from the obligation to provide information to citizens. Section 8 is the most important part of this act, and it is very simple for officials to reject the request for information if it falls under any of the long, general, and ambiguous clauses of exemptions. So this section is general and it can be interpreted in either way. Subsection 1 of this Section 8, it lists out the specific exemptions to disclosure, which are information that a requester may not claim as a matter of right. And subsection 2 of this Section 8 of the RTI Act, it provides for the disclosure of even exempt information when public interest in disclosure outweighs the harm to the protected interests. And subsection 3 of this Section 8 of the RTI Act, it has limited the operation of 7 out of the 10 exemptions up to 20 years for a given set of records. There is also a non-obstante clause, which is Section 22 of the RTI Act of 2005. Parliament has enacted a non-obstant clause in Section 22 of the RTI Act. So this non-obstant clause, it clearly means that the RTI Act will prevail over all laws and rules, including the Official Secrets Act as well, as far as providing information under RTI is concerned. And it does not mean that the Official Secrets Act or other acts are repealed. Where a request for information is filed under the RTI Act, it can be denied only if the provisions of the RTI Act provide for an exemption. So now let us study about some of the limitations under the Official Secret Act, the Official Secrets Act of 1923. So the Official Secrets Act was first enacted in 1923 during the British Raj, and it was retained also after independence. So this Official Secrets Act is India's Anti-Espionage Act. So this law, which is applicable to government servants and citizens, it provides the framework for dealing with espionage, as well as sedition and other potential threats to the integrity of the nation. This law, the Official Secrets Act of 1923, it makes spying or sharing secret information or unauthorized use of uniforms or withholding information or interference with the armed forces in prohibited areas, among others, punishable offences. There is also the Indian Evidence Act of 1872, which provides that evidence relating to affairs of the state official records and professional communications are restricted for disclosure to the general public. And Section 123 of this Indian Evidence Act, it states that no one shall be permitted to give any evidence derived from unpublished official records relating to the affairs of the state, except with the permission of the heads of the respective departments concerned. And who shall have the right to give or withhold such permission as he or she thinks fit. So this is what the Indian Evidence Act of 1872 has said. And Section 124, 125 and 126 of this Indian Evidence Act of 1872, it provides for privileged communication as well. And Section 124 of this Indian Evidence Act says that no public officer shall disclose communications made to him in official capacity if he considers that the public interest would suffer by this disclosure. And Section 125 of this Indian Evidence Act of 1872, it bars communication of information by the magistrate or police officer or revenue officer relating to the offences that are being committed by any person. And Section 126 is concerned with professional communication relating to professional persons such as barrister, attorney, pleader or vakil to their client. So we have so far been discussing the RTI, and here we have been discussing the limitations on the RTI Act, and we have so far discussed two limitations relating to the Official Secrets Act. We have discussed. We have also discussed the limitations that have been imposed by the Indian Evidence Act, and we have also discussed the Section 8 of this RTI Act itself and the subsection 1, 2 and 3, which has imposed certain limitations on the RTI Act, keeping in mind the unity, integrity and sovereignty of the nation. So that we are discussing. And also there is the Central Services Control Rules and the All India Services Conduct Rules as well, which impose some restrictions also on this functioning of the RTI Act of 2005. So the unauthorized communication of information by any government servant is highly prohibited under these Central Civil Services Control Rules and All India Service Conduct Rules. So the Central Civil Services Control Rules as well as the All India Services Conduct Rules, they have the same version. So this rule, it clearly states that no government servant, except in accordance with any general or special order of the government, they have also imposed certain restrictions on government servants in communicating information in an unauthorized manner. So these are the limitations on the functioning of the RTI Act of 2005. There is another limitation that we must discuss, that is relating to the Atomic Energy Act of 1962. So this Atomic Energy Act of 1962, it also has some provisions which put restrictions on the disclosure of information. So Section 18(1) of this Atomic Energy Act of 1962, it has put certain restrictions on disclosure of certain may restrict the disclosure of information relating to any document or photograph or plan or model of any proposed atomic energy plant that is used for the purpose of producing, developing or using atomic energy, or regarding the method of operation of any such atomic energy plant. And this Section 18 Clause 1 has further stated that this information cannot be disclosed by any person without taking authority from the central government. So we have so far discussed as part of the limitations. We have discussed the Section 8 of the RTI Act of 2005, and as part of that, we have discussed the subsection 1, 2, and 3. We have also discussed the limitations that have been imposed by the Official Secrets Act of 1923 and the Indian Evidence Act of 1872, and also the Central Civil Services Control Rules and the All India Services Conduct Rules, and the limitations and restrictions they have imposed on the operation of the RTI Act in India. And just now we have discussed the restrictions that the Atomic Energy Act of 1962 has put on the operation of the right to information in India. So these are some of the significant limitations that we have discussed. Moving on, there is another limitation. Information Technology Act of 2000 has also put a restriction on the operation of right to information in India. So this IT Act of 2000, it intended to regulate the electronic data in India. And it is this view of from the view of this act that the data collected through computers about any organization should be maintained and saved properly, and the same may not be disclosed without taking their consent. Otherwise, it will be treated as a punishable offense. So, Section 72 of this IT Act of 2000, it prescribes penalty for the breach of confidentiality and privacy of data. So data confidentiality and data privacy is also a very important aspect. And the Supreme Court, in its judgment, K. Puttaswamy versus Union of India in 2017, it also said that right to privacy is a fundamental right that is a part of right to life and liberty. So right to privacy has now been given the status of a fundamental right by the Supreme Court of India in K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India case of 2017. So data privacy is also a significant factor, a significant aspect that has in some ways hindered the functioning of the right to information in our country. And this Section 72 of the IT Act of 2000 that we are talking about, it has also clearly stated that one should save and maintain electronic record, correspondence and information documents, and the same should not be disclosed without taking consent of the person concerned. And if it is done, then the accused person shall be punished with imprisonment or a fine of 1 lakh rupees. So, we in this paper, thank you so much.